Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. I hope you guys are having a good morning. Hopefully you had a good weekend. I'm going to kind of rush through my introduction here because we have Col Joe Adams waiting in the wing to join us, of course, from the Washington Guard. Can't wait to talk to Col Joe Adams. It's been too long. I want to jump into things we're going to talk about at some point today in the show. One, obviously, the video I just played as the introduction. Beautiful, beautiful song. Amazing Grace, always one of my favorites. It's so hard to hear that when you know somebody has been lost, whether it's a family member or just somebody you look up to. And it is. We're going to talk later about the difference between how we handle these types of tragedies and how they handle these tragedies. We're going to talk a little bit about the firings. Hundreds of people have been fired over their celebratory social media posts over Charlie Kirk's assassination. And it is assassination. People are saying, oh, it's not assassination. A guy got shot. He's not a political figure. Actually, he is. He owns and operates one of the largest political action committees in the United States. So very pivotal, of course, and as we've talked about before, in getting those votes out for conservative political leaders. We're going to jump into that. We're going to talk a little bit about, I want to talk about a video of Erica Kirk at the casket. People are saying, well, that's not Charlie. Those are fake wax hands. That's not true. Those are his real hands. We'll talk about that later. We're going to talk about so many things. Do we have the right guy? Is there a conspiracy? Is it just a cut and dry case? It seems pretty cut and dry. Donald Trump, the FBI, they're going to expand the investigation into these trans power groups. Has to happen. It has to happen. And then we're going to talk about Governor, trying to rush through things. Governor Kathy Hochul, of course, has endorsed Mamdani for New York City Mayor. Trump's thinking about pulling back their federal grants because of that. We've got a lot going on today. What else? There was something else big we'll talk about. We'll get to it when we get to it. But in the meantime, I'm going to bring in Col Joe Adams. We're going to talk to him from the Washington Guard. Can't wait either, because I'll tell you, it's been too long. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Kim. Good morning, Allison. Happy to see you all this morning. Let me grab Col Joe Adams, bring him into the show. Good morning, Col Joe Adams with the Washington Guard. It's been too long. How are you doing today?
Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah, testing 1 2 3, testing 1 2 3.
You are loud, clear, and good.
Well, we went to some very expensive rework of the communication out here from the ranch. So hopefully today it'll work fine. So
it sounds perfect.
Yeah. So we'll see if I get disconnected. Anyway, we should be okay. We finished up all the connections last Friday. So thanks to American Burglary and Fire, who were my technicians who I've worked with for almost a half a century. And supposedly they've got me back in the 21st century again. So
it sounds like it.
People say, well, why do you put up with that? Your internet's. I said, look, when I was talking to Joey Jones recently, and when I found out that Joey lives at a ranch 4-hour drive from Atlanta. Now this guy, of course, he's got drivers because he's still handicapped. And I said, damn, Joey, you need to move closer to the studio, 4 hours. He goes, yes, but you haven't seen my view. What he meant was he's got an estate that's got an incredible view. So he lives in the Stone Age too when he gets home, and hopefully that the reason I kind of live in the Stone Age is the fact that the view. I mean, I live in the middle of a huge cedar forest, and I don't have any neighbors, and I like it that way. So some things you have to sacrifice, and I sacrifice technology. But hopefully we've caught up, and now I can communicate and be a regular person. So we'll give it a try and see what happens.
You
Uh,
outside of me coughing, you sound fantastic. I didn't even realize. I don't think I had my microphone on. I was just carrying on talking about stuff, and just realized I doubt anyone could even hear me. So I want to make sure everyone knows, in case they didn't hear me, that of course you are Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard, and how happy we are to have you today. And Colonel Adams, trust me, I get it. I live in a rural area, and I am still struggling with my internet. As Deanna, your wife, knows, I sent her a message this morning. I'm like, I'm having trouble with my internet. It's really hard to find a service that works consistently. I actually had one. I was using T-Mobile home internet, but I had to have it placed like right next to my equipment here. And then it didn't work for the rest of the house. So I had 3 different internet services. It's hard.
Yeah, hopefully the Starlink stuff works. So Elon Musk, if it fails, I'll give him a phone call. Anyway, so usually before I come on the air with you, I think about and talk to my wife about some things that should be brought out. But I didn't even bother with that today because obviously it's the Charlie Kirk thing. So we can get through that. What's going on in society with these people that are celebrating his death and everything. But that stands to reason. I mean, the idiots are still out there that they left us. But in this social media things now become, is part of our mental health issue, the reprogramming of our children in the school system, especially the universities. What do you expect? These people have lost their minds. But it's social media and the algorithms and all of that. I mean, this kid that did this horrible thing. He was a product of that. I mean, that was his world, and
yes.
He obviously is mentally ill, which doesn't make it any better. But this is a huge indicator, and I still think that this is a huge random act of violence that's going on in this country. It's an epidemic, and if you think he's the only one out there doing and thinking these things, I got news for you. All this incident will make the crazies really surface. There's over 1,000 of people, nutcases just like him out there, just thinking the same thing on what they can do. This one's, we're in deep trouble, and that's the essence of what we teach the Washington Guard: is self-sufficiency, stay armed, know how to use it, and put your head on a pedestal. Without being aware of your situational awareness. If you don't have situational awareness, then you're a walking target, a soft target. And Charlie was a soft target. If you look at his security is looking out.
Right,
correct. They're not even looking back, and all these hand signals and all that. Well, everybody uses that stuff. So the conspiracy theorists, they're giving signals.
Yeah.
It's just but obviously the security, like in with Trump, when the light security, the security was the issue here. The kids in the wide open, I don't know where their perimeter was. Usually the perimeter for an executive should go out to 1,000 meters. They had nobody out there. We had no spotters. His security, he was surrounded with security, which means nothing. They're looking out, and they were more concerned with the crowd, thinking that something should come from the crowd, and they had undercover people working the crowd. That's what the hand signals were all about. So if in fact that's what they were for, I've used them in the past. When I worked protective service, I never lost a client. Now, some of my clients were murdered or killed after I left the service, but never on my watch.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought some of these things up because, people were talking about the hand signals. Now, the guy in the white, that's Charlie's mentor and best friend. So he was not signaling to any person to harm Charlie like some people are thinking. And I get it. When you see those hand signals, you think, are they part of the plan? Then the other guy was his long-term security man who's worked with him for a really long time. And I don't recall right now the name of that security company. I was reading about them yesterday. Colonel Adams, I know you know his name is Jocko, the guy that owns it, and I always remember that because that's my uncle's name also. But and they're very well known, reputable, security company. But just like you said, they were overwhelmed. There was I don't know if there was thousands. I would say that maybe thousands of people that had attended this rally, and they had 6 police officers and his own security team, which is only a couple of guys. So I don't know. I think that their security winks and signals are more for getting speakers going, bringing speakers up than they are security. So you're right. No one was watching. They were not protected. I own a security company. I do security, for Tom Cruise and Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell and Will Smith, a whole host of big name celebrities. And I'll tell you what, we put a better plan together. And I hate that for Charlie. And same for Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, that there wasn't a better plan put together. You have to have somebody scoping out the perimeter. That's the basics.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do soft security. I don't do celebrities. Well, I did. I helped out when some of these charities for like Bikers for Babies, and I helped them out with, when John Goodman was in town, I helped him out. But usually I didn't do. The people I protected and the people that I was assigned to, they were trying to kill. They wanted them. People wanted them dead. Now, to look, hindsight's 20/20, but to look back, he didn't have nearly enough security. There were 3,000 people in that crowd, and they were concerned with that. But they didn't have a big perimeter. There was no spotters. They should have had spotters. Well, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Okay.
Right. And would they have even had time? Because, for the people who did see Tyler Robinson on the roof, he took the shot very quickly. I listened to videos over the weekend. There were witnesses who saw him on the roof. He was running. He got into place. He took the shot. He left, jumped off the roof. I've got a video later. I'm going to show everybody about him jumping off the roof, because that's kind of where the conspiracy theory begins, is that roof jump. But I'll tell you, he wasn't there very long. Even if somebody had spotted him, I don't know that they could have stopped him. Unless they had their own sharpshooters.
I've watched the videos too, and I've watched them over and over and over again. And the one thing that stands out is the rifle.
Exactly.
There's nobody within your listening audience or out there that knows more about weapons than I do, especially small arms and military weapons. I question the weapon. Now, this is a Mauser 30-06, probably rechambered from a 8mm, whatever they use, different varieties of the Mauser made the weapons. But most of them were, after World War I, World War II came back and were chambered to 30-06 simply because it was an available bullet, an accurate bullet, and then people used it for hunting. So it was easy. So they rechambered these damn things. I want to see the rifle. So I might have missed something. I doubt if I ever missed anything. But where's that rifle when he comes off that roof?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because, this is the biggest part of the conspiracy theory and where it begins, because most people are content to say, okay, this is the guy that did it. But here's where things get crazy, Colonel Adams. And this is my main question of the day for you, is that we're told that Tyler Robinson had the rifle in his pant leg on his way up to the roof. Okay, in his pant leg. He walked with one leg straight all the way up those stairs. And then before he removed that weapon from his pants, he sits down, he takes the shot. Then they're telling us, this is the FBI, they're telling us that he took that rifle apart, and they found the screwdriver. They announced, I don't know if it was this morning or late last night, that it is his DNA on the screwdriver, and all of the DNA is his. It's been attached to him. But he used a screwdriver to take the weapon apart. He put it in his backpack. Then he jumped off the roof, runs to wherever he goes. We all got the video of him going down that hill. And then he puts the weapon back together, but he does it very quickly. So he doesn't put the scope together correctly. And then what he does is he leaves it wrapped in a towel, his DNA on the towel, of course. And so I have no doubt that he is the person who handled the weapon. So of course his DNA is going to be there. But why would he disassemble it? And that type of weapon doesn't disassemble, really. So none of it makes sense to me. It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense to me either. And I've had dozens of Mauser rifles, and I can't imagine shoving one down my pants. First of all, it's a large weapon. They made a version called Tanker, and it was a shorter barreled rifle, and that was for people who were inside armored vehicles, so it wasn't banging around. So this is a shorter version, and it's a breakdown. You can break it down. Of course, that's what the screwdriver was for, but that takes some time.
And why? And it's totally unnecessary.
No,
Why would he have just left the weapon on the roof? What difference did it make?
right.
Why take it with him and throw it in some bushes where he knows they're going to find it?
Yeah, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Well, and the bigger part is his statement. He made a statement to his trans roommate that he picked the weapon up from the drop point and then took it back, and then that's when he, I guess, put it in the bushes. But none of that makes any sense either. Like the drop point, like did he drop it from the roof? But the FBI saying it was in his backpack disassembled. So what does he mean by the drop point?
It takes some time. I mean, you could practice that, but it still takes some time. Yeah, I would have. Well, of course, I would have done something like that. But why even take the weapon down? And why bring it back down again? And then he stops and puts it back together again?
No sense.
I don't know. Of course, the guy's out of his mind anyway. But
True.
I was wondering if there was some kind of this health issue with this. I guess his boyfriend, his lover's his trans. He's going trans into a woman. Well, if that's not an indicator of a troubled child, then what is? Of course, he's 22 years old by the time I was 22 years old, I was squeezing the trigger on people, but they were all bad guys. So it's just, there's a lot to be. He is a reflection of the left and their insanity that they're preaching to these people in programming. This kid was programmable.
He was radicalized in college, no question about it. His friends have said so.
What a terrible, terrible waste. But Charlie had to understand and know that he made himself a target.
Yes.
But to remain a soft target, and I feel sorry for the security people that he hired, because they've got to be just sleepless at night because they know they screwed up. But you have to go with the team they gave you, and they had the personnel, and that's what Charlie wanted. And just a terrible mistake. He was everybody's looking out, nobody's looking back towards the target. I mean, I could do pages of mistakes that were made as far as security, but then again, that's hindsight. He's been doing these rallies and these speaks for a long time, and really never had a major issue. Had some scrapes and stuff, but sometimes security will get you killed. And unfortunately, the lack of security got him killed. It's
highly, highly unfortunate, because I think he did realize he was a target, but I think very much like you said, he thought that that he needed to protect himself from these people in the audience near to him. I don't think in his wildest dreams he probably imagined being assassinated. I think he was going in that direction. If you listen to anything Candace Owens states, whether she's right or not, I don't know. But I don't think in his wildest dreams he would have thought somebody would be on a roof targeting him. But then we look at the similarities between what happened here and what happened at the other Turning Point event in Butler, Pennsylvania, in which Donald Trump, of course, was shot, barely escaping with his life. Also a failure in security. And, Colonel Adams, I'm not going to turn this into a big conspiracy theory because I don't know yet the full scope of things. What I do know is, how do we explain all of these people knowing what was going to happen ahead of time?
Well, they all should be locked up too. I mean, a lot of people knew that he was thinking about this, talking about this, and he said he was going to do it, and he did it.
Yes.
Got away with it. Sure, they got arrested, but he got away with it.
Yes.
Mission accomplished.
Yes.
Terrible waste. So right now, there's a lot of politicians on the Hill yelling for extra security, and they want it paid for by the government and everything, and they've got a reason. But as of this event, I'm done talking with the lefters. I'm done.
Me too.
I've officially, mentally, intellectually declared war on the left. I'm done. There is no talking to people. while we're talking to people and they're explaining themselves, the rest of them are reloading. I'm
That's
done.
right.
I'm done. I want to have nothing to do. No more talking. You know, Charlie was big on conversation. Well, it got him killed. I'm done. There's nothing the left can tell me that I need to hear from them. I'm
I
done.
agree. I couldn't agree more. I was thinking the same thing. I purged a lot of folks off my social media this
Yep.
weekend because I've learned also, just like you have, that there's no talking to these people. There's no explaining. They're only listening to mainstream media, which is extremely dangerous. I kept a video up on my Facebook page until Facebook took it down. Which I also played on the show last week. It was like Heath Ledger as the Joker, and on the television he's watching people like Tim Walz and Kamala Harris and all of these people, and all their dangerous, dangerous rhetoric. And Colonel Adams, we have to accept that these people, they hate us as much as they hated Charlie Kirk. And we're not going to convince them of anything different. They're going to
No,
believe lies, and we can't change that.
I mean they openly say that Donald Trump's a fascist. These people are preaching that, don't even know what a fascism is. Uh, and they believe it. So now they're going, everybody's backpedaling. Even Nancy Pelosi's backpedaling, how we all should have a conversation. You know, screw them. I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm done talking to them. They are the enemy. I'm at war as of today with the left. I'm done with them. Some people you can't deal with. You can't. There's no good negotiation because they're crazy. They all go on TV and do their press conferences and openly say that Donald Trump's a fascist. Well, what's these kids are supposed to think? Oh yeah,
Right.
that's what they told us in school. And now look at the Tim Walz is, oh, he's a fascist. He's a Nazi. Really? So when they do these kinds of things, they think they're doing the right thing because he's a fascist. No, he's not. They're the ones who are just crazy. But I'm just situational awareness. The foundation of what everybody should be doing is what the foundation of the Washington Guard is. Be prepared, have the skills, protect your family, and you men out there become dangerous. I mean, you need to train them because your responsibility is to take care of your family and protect your children, your property, your treasure, whatever. Men in this country need to stand up and be more dangerous and get ready because if I'm at war, I'm done. I'm finished. I'm the line in the sand. And the essence of what we teach the Guard, you take home with you. People still ask me. They'll stop me and say, well, Colonel, what should I be doing? What? You should already be there.
Right.
And this is what we teach. And so that's how we help first responders. My people are ready, are trained, and continue to train because we have a saying that there's a sign on my door. We don't call 911. I might call them after the fact. I'm not calling them before the fact. I can take care of myself. I take care of my family.
Well, people need to be prepared, Colonel Adams, because I'm telling you, and I know you know this, it's coming. We've already had one incident of a young man, 19 years old, there in Phoenix at the Turning Point headquarters where they had a memorial for Charlie, who came and destroyed it. And he was wearing the same shirt Tyler Robinson wore when he made that shot, the same shirt. And now all of a sudden, Walmart's selling those shirts, Amazon selling those shirts. You're seeing those shirts pop up everywhere. Why? Because they know that these lunatics are going to go out there and they're going to purchase these shirts and they're going to create copycat crimes. And you know what? Everything you're saying is 100% on point. We have to have our heads on a swivel. Now, I'm not going to go out and harm anyone. I know you're not either, but we need to be ready to defend ourselves. We're going to be in a very defensive posture here in the coming days, weeks, and months.
You know, the FBI says that 22% of the people who are victim of random acts of violence, only 22% knows the perpetrator. The other people have no contact whatsoever. It just happens, and it happens fast. And that's another thing, the FBI, when it happens fast. When you go to the grocery store, you're a soft target. I mean, these public events, the carnivals, the circus, I mean, all these things, it's quite possible. And when it happens, you're on your own.
You're right. Colonel Adams, it's funny that I happen to have, I think, that general figure that last year there were around 2,300 people in the United States killed by just random strangers, completely killed at random. You don't know. Of course, the majority of homicides are going to be people you do know. But in these mass shooting situations, you're out on the street, you just have to be prepared. Look what happened to that lady in Philadelphia, a couple weeks ago, or a few days ago, where she was out. She came across this homeless man. He was fighting with his girlfriend. I'm sure you saw that case. And she had a weapon and she took her weapon out. And guess what? The homeless guy took the weapon away from her and executed her with it right there in the middle of the street on camera.
That's another thing we teach you. If you flourish that weapon, there's a chance they're going to take it away from you. So you have to practice that too. No. That doesn't happen. The guard covers all that. But it's just a terrible, terrible. You talk about a turning point, his association. This is the turning point, him getting killed. If this don't wake people up, nothing will. But
you're right. And you have to, Allison made the best comment too. She said the average 911 call response is 23 minutes. And depending on where you are, Allison, because you know what? If you live in the city of St. Louis or other urban areas, it could be more than an hour. They may not come at all. You have to be prepared to protect yourself.
Yeah, I made up a saying. We have a saying in the guard. It could be 10 seconds, 10 minutes, 10 hours, 10 days, 10 months that you might have to be on your own. And I know that's overkill, but someday I hope I'm wrong, but that's where this country's headed. This world is more dangerous than it was yesterday. I mean, how many days can we survive this before it hits the fan?
It's going to get a lot worse. It's going to get a lot worse.
The epitome that everybody should keep it in mind and think about when they walk out that door or answer the door is the Ukrainian woman on that train.
That's right.
What the hell? This crazy guy sitting behind her. Now, if you look at that train car, if she was trained by the Washington Guard and she walked on that train and saw him, and she sat right in front of him, what she do? She went right to her cell phone and head down, reading whatever.
Not aware at all of her surroundings.
If she would have continued looking at the situation and being situational awareness, look at that train car, analyze it, just like when I go to a restaurant, a bar, or anything else, I know where the back door is. I'm looking at people in the crowd.
That's right.
How they're dressed. If she would have walked to the rear of that train car and sat in the last seat, now all the problems in that train car are in front of her. She could have seen him coming and stay off the damn phone.
That's
the lack of situational awareness got her killed.
You're right. And Colonel Adams, I'm so glad you said that, because I was just explaining that to a family member of mine the other day, because I have a family member that just doesn't really look around. I guess they don't feel like they have any reason to. And the same thing with Irina Zaretska. They're in Charlotte, North Carolina. She got, just like you said, she got on the train. She didn't look around for. She would have never sat there had she. She would have sat. There are many more places in that train car she could have sat that would have been a safer environment for her. And then she's on her phone. She didn't even feel the movement. I would know every movement a person made behind me, around me. I feel like I have eyes in the back of my head. I can feel it and sense it, but I'm like you. Of course, that's the security training in me. I'm always looking around, always know what I'm doing. But so many people have no clue. They have no idea. Do you know how many people have been shot and killed because they've been on their cell phone? They get in their car, they're on their cell phone. They get on a train, they're on their cell phone. They're walking down the street on their cell phone. All their attention is diverted on that device in front of them. They have no idea what's taking place around them.
That's what got her killed. Situational awareness. Why would you do that? Well, this is why you wouldn't do that.
That's right. That's right. Anyway,
everybody should think about the train situation, the train car murder, nutcases.
And Colonel Adams, her killer is not in jail any longer. I don't know if you know that, but there was a judge in North Carolina who removed him, DeCarlos Brown, from prison and put him in a hospital to be evaluated. He's not even behind bars right now. They're trying to explain to everyone, this judge, who Trump is trying to have removed, by the way, that this guy is mentally ill. He's schizophrenic. He doesn't belong in prison. And we're hearing that he will never go back to prison. He will go to a mental institution instead.
Great. Just great. The nutcases are out there, people, and they're all around us, and they're amongst us. The enemy is amongst us, and it's up to it's going to be up to you to protect yourself. It's a terrible thing that we have to live like this, but this is it. This ain't the 50s anymore.
No.
The 21st century, and it's a dangerous, dangerous place. And these liberal judges and things they're not helping, they're hurting. And so, anyway, I could do this all day long, but the answer is people say, what should I do? Well, first of all, you should join the Washington Guard and get some training and continue the training. Anyway, so, oh yeah, we got I know you've got other things you want to talk about, but we got our banquet coming up October 11th out here in Washington, and
can't wait.
It's the Price of Freedom. Jamie Allman's going to be the MC. We've got the former test pilot for Boeing for the Harrier jet. He's speaking, former state representative. Colonel Jack Jackson, he's a hell of a guy. And they got Doug Giles, and I know you know Doug Giles. He's the founder of Warriors and Wild Man. He's going to speak, and of course, I'll probably put my 2 cents worth in. So anyway, it's going to be a great banquet, and you can get your tickets at what is that at, Deanna?
Go to Washington Guard.
WashingtonGuard.com.
Yeah, go to events.
Yeah, the WashingtonGuard.com and slash and go to the event button and get your tickets. Tickets just went on sale. So October the 11th is our 4th annual. It's huge. Again, this is about supporting first responders and real heroes, and how we do that. The money that we raise goes into the training and the equipment necessary to help first responders, just like we did after the tornado come through here. So every time we help them, it actually free up one emergency responder to help the community. So, and that's what the Washington Guard is all about. We are a militia. I know some people say, oh, you maybe shouldn't say militia. Yeah, well, I'm saying militia.
As you should.
We're a true militia, and we're the only militia in the country in the Chamber of Commerce, and working with the Sheriff's Department. And you get a great, great Sheriff's Department here. So please come to the event, pull me off the side, talk to me, tell me that you heard on Tabitha's show, and please, people, take care of yourself. Take the effort. Let me, there's something that's happening, okay? I talked to militia people all over the country, and the militia recruitment and personnel you would think would be on the rise, correct? You've got an open door, Donald Trump. People used to say, well, I joined your militia. I don't want to be on the list. Well, guess what? Trump tore the list up.
Yeah.
Trump knows who I am. I know the family. I've met with him. So, and we see a reflection in some of our training operations every month that some of the numbers have drifted off and people come and go. So joining a militia is like getting a gym membership. You're all motivated at first. You gotta do these things that's necessary to stay in shape. You show up regularly, then all of a sudden you start drifting away, and maybe you'll come back. Okay, and I told Deanna when we first started this, the fact that you're gonna have people coming and going. They should be there all the time. The guy tells me, yeah, I missed last semester because I took my kids to Disney World. Really? Maybe that one thing that you would have learned would have helped your children, and you took them to Disney World, to pedophile land. That's no excuse. Nobody has excuses for missing a muster, missing a training. This is about survival. People have to look at it. Dangerous, dangerous place. Anyway, I'll let you go. Hope to see you at the event, October the 11th. The Price of Freedom. Go to the WashingtonGuard.com and go to events, get your tickets, and come out and shake my hand and talk to me.
No question.
Hey.
Thank you so much, Col Joe Adams.
That's it. Patriots at the WashingtonGuard.com. It's
to email.
Our email is patriots at the WashingtonGuard.com. And if you need to talk to Dan, I'll give you a phone. I'll give you your phone number, 314-486-9999. So let her get the phone calls. Don't call me. Anyway, the cats are glad we're back. So
yes, we're happy to see you and them, and from Deanna, of course, and can't wait to talk to you next Monday. And we'll go over, by next Monday, Colonel Adams, there's going to be a lot that has happened and a lot more to talk about. So I can't wait.
Since I've been off the air because of comment. Hey, how about this? we did a show and no interruptions. This is amazing.
Right? See how
So
nice it is?
I've got pages and pages of things that people are overlooking their indicators. And that's what this is all about. Situational awareness, indicators, and be ready.
That's right.
See you
And
next week.
we need to be ready. Thank you so much, Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard. Guys, please make sure to reach out to Colonel Joe Adams at the Washington Guard, WashingtonGuard.com, of course, out there in Washington, Missouri. Just a fantastic organization, some really great people. They really know how to run things. And I'm telling you, in my opinion, and I hope I'm wrong, but in my opinion, the violence is going to increase. It's going to increase. And why? Because, because now the left feels like they have a victory. They took one of us out, and they broke through that shell, and sometimes that's a difficult thing to do, but they've broken through that shell, and now that has happened, it opens up for more of these types of attacks. And we see all the statements on social media, don't we? We see those statements on social media. We know. We've always thought we knew how they felt, but seeing hundreds, probably thousands of people celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk, somebody who stood for Christianity, how how can you explain evil in a better way than what has just taken place? Unbelievable. And I know I've got a lot of comments up that I didn't get to. Thank you, Ting Ting, for joining us today. Allison, the muster in Robertsville, come out and join. And Ting Ting, 11% Oath Keeper here since 2001. I'm glad to hear that. I'm not scared of any list. I'm with you, Ting Ting, and I absolutely love the Oath Keepers. Good morning, Karen. And I'll tell you, I really do. I think we need to be worried. We saw the memorial destroyed by that 19-year-old Ryder Corral. 19 years old. He comes up, destroys the memorial. His parent, as a matter of fact, one of his parents was a vice principal, I believe it was, or co-administrator, something along those lines of a school. I mean, that's the scary part, is these people work within our healthcare systems. They work within our school administrations. It's in our government. It's a very scary situation. And I think we know now more than ever how much they hate us. And look at what Ryder did. He went out intentionally and he purchased this same shirt. And, he must have done that pretty quick. He went out and he purchased the same shirt that Tyler Robinson wore when he assassinated Charlie Kirk. And he wore that shirt to destroy the memorial there at the TPUSA headquarters. And then I heard this morning, Oklahoma City, somebody came out last night, or maybe more than one person, and they burned down the memorial, burned it to the ground. These people are hateful. And I'm not talking about Democrats. I'm not necessarily talking about liberals. I'm talking about people who are radical extremists. There's radical extremists in, every religion. There are Christians who are radically extreme, and those people are dangerous too. We've seen them, go into abortion facilities and bomb them. We've seen some of the things. There's been assassinations on our side as well. Because you know why? It's radicalization. It's extremism. It's complete intolerance for anyone who doesn't feel like you do. And so our battle, in my opinion, is fighting the radical extremists. And right now, those radical extremists on the left, they hated Charlie Kirk. But you know what? It wasn't really necessarily just him. They hated what he stood for. They hated what he was preaching. They hated really that he was reversing the indoctrination that was taking place in these colleges and universities. Because we know what was the number one goal of Turning Point USA is they were going out to these colleges, high schools, colleges, universities, and they were turning people into Christians. There are countless people who have come on different shows that have made videos on social media who said, I was once a liberal. I was once a liberal. I was once gay, or I was once trans, or whatever. I've seen all kinds of videos from different people. And they said, I went to a Charlie Kirk rally. I heard what he had to say, and his faith, just seeing the faith that he had and what the faith did for him, made me also, look into faith. I've heard countless people say that. And I'm not saying that that Charlie's goal, was to take a trans person or a gay person and turn them straight. I don't think that was his goal at all. And people on the left want to say, well, Charlie didn't accept people for who they were. And so we must hate him. But if you listen to him, to the full context of his speeches and of his comment, not one time did he ever say he did not like trans people, or he didn't like gay people, or he didn't like black people, all these crazy things we're hearing. That is never what he said. He preached what is in the Bible. He preached his gospel. He talked about his own life and how he lives his life in a Christian way. But see, they don't like that. The far fringe left doesn't like that. They don't like it. Why? Because they don't agree with it. If they don't agree with it, then guess what? They consider that to be hate speech. I never thought I would live in a world where just because someone thinks that you're speaking words that they don't agree with, that don't fit their lifestyle, that you're hateful. I mean, Charlie Kirk was the least hateful person anyone could possibly come across. But because he wasn't agreeing with them, they hated him. They consider it hate speech. I've watched so many Charlie Kirk videos. I have looked at so many of his interviews over the past few days. I will say I've never watched his show. I interviewed him, and quite honestly, when I was at Real Talk and they brought Charlie Kirk in, I wasn't even 100% sure who he was, because I'm not his typical demographic. I'm a lot older. I don't have any children, in college, or the typical age that he targets. Younger people, absolutely idolized him. And then I interviewed him. He was just a fantastic person in the studio. And then I started following him and reading his comments, and not necessarily watching his show because I'm usually at work, but I've seen, a lot of the videos and different things from his rallies. And he was undoing what the left tried so hard to do. It's all about voters, though. That's what it's all about. It's all about voters, because Democrats try really hard to get these young people confused. They want them to be confused. They don't want them to know who they are. And they want them to have all of this chaos in their lives. They want them to be unstable, and they want them to vote Democrat. They do not want these kids to be Christian. They don't want them to have families. They don't want them to vote Republican. And so we know that these colleges are indoctrination camps for young people. Charlie was undoing that. He was talking to these young people, and they were switching sides. And the Democrats know that. If there was any reason at all, I would think that somebody intentionally harmed Charlie outside of the common theory, with it being Tyler Robinson. If it was more of a down the rabbit hole conspiracy type setup, I would say it was for that reason, because it's about votes. I don't think it was Israel. There's a lot of talk about there that it was actually Donald Trump, that Donald Trump put out the hit on Charlie to distract everybody from Epstein case. And I don't believe that to be true. And we're going to talk about that. We'll just jump into it for just a second now. On the same day that Charlie Kirk was killed, there was also a vote in the Senate to reveal the Epstein files. Democrats led the charge, and they won. I think it was at 52 to 49. I believe 51 to 49, something along those lines, where Democrats wanted the Epstein files to be released. Republicans said, no, we do not want the Epstein files to be released. And there were two Republicans, it was Rand Paul and Josh Hawley, who sided with Democrats in releasing those files. And so there's a lot of people out there saying, well, Charlie Kirk was really pushing for those Epstein files to be released. And so therefore, Donald Trump took them out. Now, and of course, there's a video out there showing Donald Trump at the game. I can't recall what team he went to go see afterwards, but they said, oh, he's celebrating and dancing. And, he's the president. He has got to go. He can't go to the football game and cry. We know how he felt about Charlie. I don't think anything different now than what I did from day one. But I don't think it was Israel. I don't think it was Donald Trump that took out Charlie Kirk. Quite honestly, the most plausible reason is truly that we have a guy named Tyler Robinson. And just like Col Joe Adams said, there's 1,000 of others out there just like him who listened to Charlie Kirk. He felt that what he was saying was hate speech. Tyler Robinson, just like we thought. Now, didn't we call this literally on day one? We called this on day one. He is part of these Antifa and trans power groups. We knew it. We knew it. How could you not know it? And of course, all the evidence has pointed to the same. He was on Discord. Now, Discord, here's what's crazy is the FBI claims that Tyler Robinson was all on all of these Discord groups. There's a lot of craziness that goes on Discord. Discord has been a common denominator with a lot of different types of mass shooting situations. I think people feel like they can go on Discord or Reddit. Reddit's been kind of drug into the mix now too. And they can go on there and spread their hate and their propaganda, and that they can be free to do that versus, let's say, a Facebook or an X or something along those lines. And now Discord claims they did their own investigation and they don't see anything in there from Tyler Robinson. Well, we know that's probably not true. Not that I believe necessarily everything the FBI says either at those top levels, but I do believe he probably was on Discord. The FBI claims that he was part of the trans power groups. He was part of the Antifa groups, and that he openly talked about what he was doing. This crime was planned well ahead of time. That's something we now know. His trans partner, roommate, yes, they were a couple. I can't believe how many Democrats are out there who still believe that we're just making this all up. I've seen countless posts from liberals, some higher ranking liberals at that, who are saying, oh, the right side, the conservatives are trying to push this theory that Tyler Robinson was gay, or that he was with a trans person, or that this is related to the trans movement. That's just not true. It is 100% true. It is absolutely 100% true. And I'm not saying every trans person hates us or would commit this type of crime, because that's also not true. However, there are radicalized groups out there. We've talked many times on this show about the trans power movement. I can think of at least 5 mass shooters who were part of the trans power movement who also had stickers or other engravings on their weapon or on the magazines or on the bullets. Sarah says, I think he is the fall guy. Maybe he really did take the shot, but I don't think he could make that shot. Sarah, I've been back and forth with this myself. Now, I've read and talked to as many experts as I possibly can. Now, most people tell me with that weapon that that's a very easy shot. Now, Tyler did allegedly, according to his friends, I don't even think I need to use the word allegedly, that he did speak to his friends, and he has bragged for years about being a really good shot from a long distance. He and his dad hunted together. He was trained on various types of weapons. So I do think that he could probably make that shot. But, did he, or was it someone else? I will never believe. And I did see this morning that the investigation again has expanded, and they're looking into these trans power groups, and they're looking into some of the people who had made comments on social media that they knew something big was going to happen that day. But it's all in the same group. It's all part of the trans power group. All those people belong to trans power. However, when it comes to this type of conspiracy theory, the way I see it, and I think we talked about this on that very first show, because this thought is still in my mind. Yes, it absolutely could be just Tyler Robinson. He hated anyone who didn't agree with his life. I was talking about that the other day. A lot of these folks in these trans power movements, if you are not also trans, then they don't feel like you can possibly understand what they're going through. And therefore they hate you because you're not part of their group. You don't understand them in the way they want you to understand them. So it's very possible that he truly did carry out, even though there's a lot of things that don't make sense, even if he did, dumping off the roof, taking the weapon apart, putting it in his backpack, then reassembling it, leaving it in a towel under some trees. I mean, none of that makes sense to me. But let's say as a conspiracy, it makes a lot of sense too, because even though he may have taken a shot, maybe he took a shot, and then you have a true sniper. Maybe there were multiple snipers throughout that event that we don't know about and, haven't seen, because obviously a professional hitman, you're not going to see them. They're not going to be running on a roof, putting their forearms in the dirt where we can go back and get their DNA, touch DNA. People are like, how can you get DNA from a forearm on the ground? Well, you can get touch DNA. Even your clothing leaves little fibers and things behind that you can't see. So, there is some possibilities that he could just makes the perfect fall guy, quite honestly. He makes the perfect patsy. There's no question about that. And he seems like somebody who's so easily led and so easily manipulated that's exactly what these people want is they want somebody like that who can be led, who can be manipulated. So in this type of scenario, and again, I think we already talked about this on the first day when we were talking about Charlie, but we'll kind of go over it a little bit again. But what in this type of situation, there could be multiple snipers in the same venue, or maybe just one other. So Charlie goes up, he's running on the roof, and that's what they want. They want him to be obvious. They want him to make these mistakes. So he's running on the roof, he gets into position. So let's say the sniper, the real sniper, or snipers, they're watching him because everybody can see him if you know where to look. And he gets in position, and then he might fire a shot. Well, then maybe they fire a shot at the same time and they actually hit the target. He thinks that he did. And then from there, you see him running back down the roof, jumping off the roof, making a spectacle of himself, caught on camera. A true hitman, a true sniper, they're not going to be seen on camera. They're going to know where the cameras are. We're not going to see any video of them at all coming to or leaving the scene, at least not where we can figure out who they are and get any information. They're not going to leave DNA. They're not going to leave their weapon behind. They're not going to do any of these things. Let's see. And Dottie says he's no longer cooperating because he realizes he is an Oswald. You're probably right, Dottie. I'm kind of 60-40. 60% of me thinks that he has just acted alone. Yes, he told people about it. People knew what he was planning, but because they're all part of this trans power movement, they all hate us, so they weren't going to tell anyone. But they couldn't help themselves but to get online. I could see things going that route. But then 40% of me is like, there has to be something more to the story because too many things don't make sense. We have that one guy, that George Zinn, who, remember, he looks like Bernie Sanders, 71-year-old guy, who, as soon as the shot's fired, he says, I did it. And of course, he wanted to draw attention to himself. Now, what other person would do that without pre-planning that? What person would do that? This had to be planned, whether Tyler planned it, whether some other entity planned it. This guy was part of the plan. You'll never convince me of anything else. He said, I did it. He distracted everybody. There was only 6 police officers out there. They all ran over there to take this guy out because they thought, because he confessed to being the shooter, but he didn't have a weapon. Didn't look like he'd probably ever touched a weapon in his life. And you can see the officers when they're carrying this guy out, they're like, well, he says he did it, because they didn't even think he did it. But that took their resources in that direction so that Tyler could escape, and maybe so somebody else could escape as well. How about that? So I can also see going down that route. When Tyler mentions to his roommate, Lance Twiggs, that all of this is by ways and messages. And Lance Twiggs, Tyler's partner, has been very cooperative with investigators, we're told, and showed investigators all of the messages between Tyler and himself. And in those messages, again, Tyler talks about a drop. I've got a video here, as a matter of fact, of the roof. It's not the greatest video. And Peggy says, do the casings to match the rifle. Peggy, we have not heard that part of the investigation as of yet. That we do not know. And Robert says, agree, fall guy, but still involved. Well, he's definitely still involved. And, quite honestly, Robert, like I said the other day, he probably thinks that he did fire, that fatal shot. And maybe he did, but he at least thinks he did. And that's why he confessed to. There's a lot of back and forth now as to whether he really did confess to his father. We're told that he did. Some people say he didn't, that it was really the boyfriend that turned him in, and that's what got the ball rolling. I know the father took him. We thought it was a priest. It was actually a youth minister. But nonetheless, very difficult decision for his father. Now, here's some video from the rooftop. And this is the only video. Trust me, I have looked at this video I've looked at video from so many different angles. I've seen a slow motion video where people are looking for the actual bullet. I've seen everything you can possibly think of. And out of all the videos I've seen, this is the only one, to me, that doesn't make sense. And you can see Tyler jumping off the roof here. Now, he's got like a sweater or something. but he does not have a weapon. Some people said, oh, he has the weapon wrapped in that sweater, but that sweater moves around. I'm trying, and you know what? I don't see him dropping a gun. Now, some people think he has a gun in that sweater or towel or something that he's holding, but it doesn't look like it's me. It doesn't look to me like there's a weapon wrapped up in there, you know? So why would he disassemble the weapon? A weapon that really can't even be disassembled properly. Put it in his backpack, jump off the roof, you know, run down this hill. We see him scurrying down a hill in other videos. And then he claims to Lance Twiggs that he went to the drop off points and picked, or he went to the drop off, not drop off point. He went to the drop off and picked up the weapon and then wrapped it in a towel and left it where he found it. So a lot of this just isn't making sense. Was that even the weapon used? To your point, Peggy, do the casings match? There's a lot here to go to think about. You know, did somebody else use that same weapon so that the casings will match? And that's not what Tyler had up on that roof. And then the person who really had that weapon and used it, maybe they dropped it somewhere and they had disassembled it. He put it back together. I don't know, and I can't make sense of it. And I don't think that the investigators are ever going to tell us there's any theory other than Tyler acted alone or at the very most conspired with other people or made other people aware. You know, and they've not ruled out additional arrests because we know there were people who knew. Now, a couple of these people who posted, they were trans people who posted on different social media platforms that something big is going to happen. They could have stopped this from happening and they better get charged. If they can link these accounts together, they better get charged. And then there's that social media post, I think it's called what, Chum Bum, some Turn Bum, something like that, 75M, who posted, we did it. We did it. We effing did it. I mean, this was talked about on social media. This was not a big secret. They weren't hiding anything. And so I'm waiting for arrests. I'm waiting for more information, and we sure as heck better get it. Lori says mental health with the Bernie Sanders lookalike. I truly want to know if there are more issues on the left. I wonder if there is a statistic showing that. You mean as far as more mental health issues, you know? I think the way I see things is that people who are on the far fringe left, and liberals in general, they think with their emotions. They're very emotional. They're not looking at fact. They're not trying to reason. They're living with emotion. Somehow in our country, we have divided, maybe in our world, we've divided ourselves by people who care about facts and are factual, which is so funny because they claim to be the fact checkers, or the other side that rules with emotions. And I know I don't rule with emotion. I don't think if you're listening to this show, you probably don't either. We all may have emotional moments, but by and large, we deal with reality and we deal with the facts. A lot of these people deal with feelings and emotion, and they hate Charlie Kirk. They hate everything he stood for. And if you preach Christianity, then you're a hateful, deceitful, evil person in their minds. And because they're living in a way that may not go with what the Bible says. And you know, and it's all just ridiculous to me, quite honestly, because you know, we're all sinners. Every last one of us. Don't even tell me you're not. Every one of us, we're all sinners. And so to me, I'm always very welcoming of other people, whether they're trans or part of the LGBTQ community. It doesn't matter to me. I'm very welcoming to any person. If you want to sit down and talk to me, I know a lot of different people watch the show I know people who are trans who've watched the show. I don't know if they watch regularly, but you know, they're not crazy like these other people. They don't want to kill us. They're trying to understand. They're Christians. They say, you know, yes, people in the Christian community aren't always welcoming to me because they think I'm sinful because I'm a trans person. And they'll say, you know, I was born this way. I can't help it, but I still love God. I still love Christ. And I'm still very much a Christian. And of course, they seek out a church and a religious group that will accept them for who they are. And I think that most Christians do. I've met some Christians who absolutely are very judgmental. And they will say, I do not want a trans person. I don't want a gay person in my church. You know, that goes against the Bible. Well, I'll tell you what, if you had sex before marriage, guess what? You're a sinner. We're all sinners, most of us, for a lot of different reasons. And so, therefore, I think that Christians, we also have to extend that welcoming hand out there. And we have to say, okay, we're not here to judge. We want you to believe in God, to believe in Christ, and follow that path. That doesn't mean that you can't be part of the LGBTQ community, because we're not here to judge. And I know some of you are probably thinking, well, yeah, I'm here to judge. Somebody used to comment on the show that, yes, I do absolutely judge. And that's what gets us into trouble. We have to be more accepting of people. And trust me, it's not our problem. Curtis says, good morning. This goes deeper than we will ever know, just like JFK. I couldn't agree more. Mr. Parnell, now Gideon and Planter have major backing and justification. Planter, yes. It does go far deeper than what we think. There's the one side that this guy is part of the trans power movement. He hates us. He went out, he took the shot, he took out his enemy. Everybody's cheering for him. They're definitely making him a martyr. There's no question about that. And there's going to be probably a lot of copycats coming out, buying that shirt and going out and committing some heinous violent acts against Christians. I fully expect that to happen, going back to Col Joe Adams and the Washington Guard and being prepared. But when you go down that rabbit hole, I still want more answers when it comes to what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. I'm sure you do too. I am 100% positive that the official narrative that we got over Butler, Pennsylvania is not true. Absolutely is not true. I absolutely believe that was a Oswald JFK type situation in Butler, Pennsylvania. I think there's a good possibility this one is too. I haven't listened to all of Candace Owens' theories, but Candace was right about Macron, and we have to believe she was right about Macron and his wife being transgender, because they sued. What was it, 22 lawsuits they filed against Candace Owens. And you know what? She said, I am going to stand up for myself because I know what I'm saying is true. Bring on the lawsuits. And you know what? They dropped the lawsuits. In fact, they dropped lawsuits against people over in France as well over the same type of accusations, because it must be true. It must be true. And Candace Owens had the plastic surgeon who worked with another plastic surgeon in the same office that allegedly did the plastic surgery, the transition for Macron's wife. So there's a lot to that. So I do listen to Candace Owens. I judge for myself. But Candace Owens claims that Charlie Kirk was taking a lot of money for some very big named people, and that he was really feeling the pressure. She said for a couple weeks now, the pressure was on. Now, she didn't explain any further, and she said she will. She hasn't explained any further. We don't know who he took money from. We don't know. And they were close. So I would think she would know. Of course, the only person who really knows is his wife and possibly some other family members. But Candace Owens claims he took a lot of money. He was really under pressure. Now, what did he take that money for? What was he supposed to deliver for taking that money? Or was that money to silence him? I don't think Charlie Kirk would have taken money, in exchange for silence. But what was that money for? We don't know. And will that play into things? Certainly possible. Certainly possible. And Kimberly says, I like to say that's between them and God. Exactly. All of our sins are between us and God, right? And we're all sinners, no question about it. There's a lot that's going to come out of this situation. I watched a video, maybe you did too, of Tyler Robinson's neighbor, because the biggest battle we're facing right now, I think, in between right and left, is that the folks on the left say we're all lying. We're just racist. We're homophobic. We're xenophobic. We're all these different things, because really Tyler was raised by conservative parents. He's really a Trump supporter. He's one of us. There's even an AI photo of him wearing a Trump shirt. But on the flip side of that, we have the proof that they're never going to find out, because guess what? Liberal social media is not going to tell the truth. They're not going to say that he was involved in these trans power groups, that he was involved in these Antifa groups. They're already saying that he is a straight white man. But that's not true. There was one friend that came forward and said that he was a trans chaser, whatever that be. I'm assuming that meant that he was only interested in trans men They were, already transitioned to women or were transitioning. We know that he lived with Lance Twiggs. Lance Twiggs is absolutely a man who is transitioning into woman, that he's already started the process. I've watched countless videos of him online, as you probably have also. We have the next door neighbor who lived next door to Lance and Tyler, who said, yes, they are a couple. I have witnessed them kissing and holding hands. I'm aware, that Lance is transitioning. He's talked to me about the medications and doctor appointments. I'm sure some of you have seen that video also. And so we know what the truth is. Now, you're not going to see that on liberal media. So these people are going to continue to say, no, that's part of the problem. They don't understand it. They don't accept it. They're going to continue to say, nope, he's MAGA. He's a Trump supporter. We don't care because you just took out one of your own, and again, hundreds of people fired over these types of statements. And I definitely want to talk about that. Mr. Parno, I saw a video where Charlie talked about the money from Israel. He refused to take it and worried that his life was in danger because he refused the money, according to the video statements. Yes, I saw those videos too. I tried to watch every video I could find, and he himself was very concerned that Israel was going to take him out. Allegedly, that, according to him, they offered him money for his silence because he was very outspoken over what happened on October 7th. That, and we talked about this last week, on October 7th, he felt that the Israeli government intentionally allowed Hamas to invade their country. And some people have gone as far as saying they funded part of it for them to enter their country so that they could enter into a war. Now, false flag operations happen all the time. I'm not saying that's what Israel did, but these false flag operations happen all the time. That's how we start wars. This situation with Tyler could be a false flag operation so that we'll battle it out between left and right. We all expected that to happen, didn't we? When Donald Trump got elected, we all expected the eventual, I don't know what the proper term for it is, but we all expected that one turning point, in which something big happened that made us fight against each other. So I don't know. I don't know what the situation is with Israel. I don't want to say that Israel is behind the assassination. I would find it hard to believe that they were, quite honestly. I find it hard to believe that Donald Trump would be behind the assassination. But, 30 years from now, when all this has dissipated, just like we look at the JFK files now, there's going to be a time where we're going to look back at this and we're going to have a much better idea of what all transpired. And I have a feeling it's going to be a lot more than little Tyler Robinson, picking up a weapon and deciding to take out his transphobia enemy. I think there's going to be a lot more to it than that. And I'll be happy to see what Candace Owens has to say when she, has the ability to talk to us a little bit more. And maybe Erica Kirk at some point will speak out. Now, Turning Point's going to continue. They're not giving up. Charlie's show today is going to be at 12 p.m. Eastern time, and JD Vance is going to host the show. From what I understand, going forward, they're not giving up the show. They're going to have guest hosts each day, and until they narrow it down to a couple of guest hosts. And I'm sure Erica Kirk, her mind has to be just reeling. She probably doesn't know what to do, but she has absolutely vowed to keep Charlie's work going. And, she's a very intelligent person on her own. I didn't realize that she was Miss Arizona. I had no idea. And she was also a professional women's basketball player. I did not know that either. So I'm learning a lot about her, a lot of things that I did not know. But she seems like a very strong person, very intelligent person, certainly very Christian person. And I, I'm going to be very careful on how I talk about this, but I'm only talking about it because I'm so tired of seeing it on social media. There's that video of Erica leaning down, and they show Kirk's suit. He's laying in his casket. They show his suit. They show his hands, and it's so touching, where she leans down and she kisses his hands. And people online are, oh, those are wax hands. Those are fake hands, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you look at Charlie's hands, that's exactly what his hands look like. He had very narrow fingers. He looked like he had very soft hands. And his hands absolutely look like the hands. Now, the reason why they had that different type of color is because, we have about 5 to 6 pints of blood in our body. When Charlie, and again, not to be graphic, when he was shot, he probably lost all of that blood within the first 2 to 3, 4 minutes. And so by the time that he made his way to the funeral home, he probably did not have any blood in his body. And of course, your skin is very white, very pale, discolored. And, I'm trying to be very careful. My son's father passed away from COVID, as many of you know, and he did have an open casket. And I know that the funeral home did the best job they could to make him look like himself. He but didn't. And of course, the coloring was really off. He looked very orangey, very waxy. Because if you talk to somebody, and where this is coming from with me is, as some of you know, I've written a crime blog for many years. I haven't lately because I'm too darn busy. And part of the investigations I would do in writing that crime blog would be talking to funeral homes and talking about how they make somebody presentable for an open casket funeral, because so many people who are murdered, some of them cannot have open casket and some of them can, and they can be very strategic in how they have an open casket, anywhere from scarves to wax to putty, in the mix that they use to make you have a more natural color. So you saw his hands look kind of orangey, but that's just in wax-like, but that's the makeup that they use. It's very waxy. It does tend to have that orangey consistency, but I think they did a good job. And I just hate to see, that was a very touching video. And I just hate seeing people say, that's not real, that's fake, those are wax hands, that's not real. It is absolutely real. And it's unfortunate, something that people have to deal with when a loved one passes away, that you have to see those things. And I can't imagine what she was going through, what was going through her mind, during those moments, when somebody's taken away from you so quickly, they're gone. You don't get those final goodbyes. I'm sure she was expecting to go home that night and have dinner and maybe watch TV or play with their kids, and her entire life was just completely disrupted. And I think we've awoken a giant in her. I think she's going to come out and she's going to do things bigger and better than they were ever done before. And I saw where we already know that Charlie Kirk has these turning point groups at various colleges and universities, high schools, as someone pointed out to me last week. And I have heard that they have 11,000, 18,000? I think it's 11,000 groups right now already across the United States in various schools. They have 32,000 submissions from people, schools who want to have their own group at their various schools. So we're going to see a new movement taking place. I saw videos this weekend of multitudes of people getting baptized. I have friends who are ministers and preachers who said, our congregation was to the brim like I've never seen it before. We saw the Kennedy Center. People were lined up all the way around the building, completely to capacity. Huntington Beach had a huge memorial service outside. You could, as far as the eye could see, there were people standing out, paying tribute to Charlie Kirk. Stadiums, the NFL gave for Sunday Night Football, they gave all the teams kind of a mandatory, where they had to do one tribute, but then it was up to one moment of silence, and it was up to each team whether or not they wanted to have a moment of silence or something else. But I think it was 4 out of the 5 teams chose not to do anything, or 4 out of the 5, I should say, games chose not to do anything, from what I understand. And we can't get them all, but we've got to start paying attention who's on our side and who's not. And I wanted to go back to those firings, because there is a couple websites that have come out, and I've looked at them. I posted one on social media where they claim to have almost, by today it's probably a lot higher, about 60,000 images of people in the United States who work, or some of them aren't in the United States, but who work for schools, hospitals, in the healthcare industry, various other positions, who are making these terrible statements about Charlie Kirk and celebrating his death. Now, these are all people, they want employers to see this. There's been hundreds of people fired, hundreds. I played a video last week of, his name is, oh gosh, I don't know if I can remember his name. I know it's Quinn5, and he's on social media, and he's actually, reaching out to these different employers. Now, I think we have to be very careful in this kind of situation, because we have to decipher the difference between freedom of speech and somebody celebrating the assassination of another person. So if people want to go out and they say, I didn't like Charlie Kirk, I thought he was hateful, I hated everything he said, blah, blah, blah. That, to me, that's that is freedom of speech. Nobody said you have to agree with any of us. You didn't have to like Charlie Kirk. You didn't have to agree. You could think he's racist. That's your right to say so. But then we cross the line when we say, I'm glad he's dead. Or when people say, I can't wait to see more. I can't wait to see this happen again to somebody else. Those are different types of statements. And it's so sad that there are really so many people out there making those horrible, horrible, terrible statements. And that just fuels the fire. It really does. But on one of the sites I looked at, I was a little concerned because there were people on there who were just exercising their freedom of speech. I don't think those people should get fired. I don't expect them to, agree with us on every single thing. I don't think that it's our right to take away their freedom of speech if they're just saying they didn't like Charlie. They thought he was racist. They gave some crazy quote he didn't even make. So they're not even factual. Versus, of course, these people who are cheering it on and glad it happened. That's a whole different scenario. I think we've got to be very, very careful there. Sarah says that's the other thing that is fishy. How could they have prepared the body that fast? Oh, they can prepare the body very fast. When it comes to the funeral home, there are people who choose one. From what I understand, I don't think that Charlie chose to be embalmed. And so what I heard is that he went straight from the hospital. He was not alive when he arrived at the hospital, despite what people say or what we've been told. And that was pretty obvious if you saw the shot. And then they said they went straight to the funeral home. They immediately prepared him and they use, they said it was kind of a basic, wooden casket that they put him in. And it can, if you're not embalmed, it can happen very, very quickly, very quickly. And funeral homes are right there at a snap, can get you prepared. My grandfather also chose not to be embalmed. I'm pretty sure my son's father also chose not to be embalmed. A lot of people don't want to be embalmed. And when you don't want to be embalmed, it is a very simple process. They don't have to do an autopsy with Charlie Kirk. I highly doubt they did an autopsy. I could be wrong, but I highly doubt they did. They probably took him in, got him prepared, put him, into his service and kind of went from there. I'm trying to be careful how I say that because it's so horrific. I don't want to cry thinking about it. Daddy says there will be lawsuits and most will win with freedom of speech. Probably so, Daddy. Probably so, because, even hate speech is free speech. I don't like to hear it, but it's true. And so I agree with you on that one, Dottie. But either way, they might win a lawsuit, but at the same time, an employer, most states have rights, was it right of will, something along those lines, where my brain's not thinking straight right now, where you can unemploy somebody for any reason. You don't even have to have a reason. You can just decide, hey, I don't want this person working for us any longer, so we're going to terminate them. So that I don't think they're going to be able to sue their employer. Maybe in some states, but I think that's probably unlikely. But it does kind of go under the freedom of speech. And Sarah says, but if it was a shooting, isn't there supposed to be an autopsy? It just depends on, I think, on the situation. And of course, they can do an autopsy, very quickly as well. They could have gone in and did toxicology. They could have done, I think with Charlie, it was pretty obvious. I don't think it took a lot to see, what happened. The injury was to his neck. And based on the shot that we saw, we could see it ourselves. People are saying, well, he got shot from behind and he got shot from this way, and that was the bullet coming out. I don't believe that to be the case. I can't explain that, but I don't believe it to be the case. I think what we saw is exactly what happened, and it tore his carotid artery just to pieces. So I think that any medical examiner looking at him would be able to see that. Now, they may have taken toxicology, but I kind of doubt it because he was a victim. They probably didn't do that. And if they have, I haven't heard. But I do know at will. Thank you so much, Robert. My brain is not working today because I've got way too much going on. Well, we're going to talk more about the situation as time goes. I know you guys are probably tired to hear about it today. But we're going to talk more about the investigation. Things are going to twist and they're going to turn. We're going to hear a lot more. There's probably going to be other people involved in the investigation. I hope anyway, there needs to be more accountability than what we have right now. So we'll conclude with that. There's a lot more that we'll be talking about in the coming days as we learn more information. Now, a couple other things I did want to talk about, though, today is one, Kathy Hochul. Donald Trump is furious with New York Governor Kathy Hochul because she has endorsed Mamdani to win the New York, or to, of course, for the New York City mayoral race. And so Donald Trump has threatened taking away federal funding for New York City because of that. Now, that just happened this morning. I don't expect anything more to play out because Kathy Hochul does whatever she wants to do. Now, a situation I am concerned about, though, is Chicago. Because remember how we heard the National Guard was going to go to Chicago? That's not going to happen anymore. And the city refused the help. And I don't know the workings behind the scenes of how the legality of everything, but I'm assuming that if a city strongly opposes, or a governor strongly opposes the National Guard coming in to fight crime, then we can't do it. And so Donald Trump has backed up his statements about Chicago. And the National Guard will not be going to Chicago. We will not see any crime fighting taking place in Chicago, unfortunately. Now, there are additional state troopers, I'm heard, in Chicago. And whether that's true or whether it's not, some people say it is, some say it's not. But I honestly think that crime will continue in Chicago. I don't think there's anything that we can do about that right now. I don't know if Trump backed off because of the threats. We know there were gangs posting videos, motorcycle gangs, street gangs, you name it. People come out, even members of our own military, saying that, hey, we're ready. We outnumber you. And if you come to the city of Chicago, you're going to pay the price because we don't want you here. And so I do think that our National Guard was under a lot of threat in the city of Chicago. So that could have something to do with it too. I think that's truly going to take the entire whole of our military to go in if we ever want to straighten out the crime in Chicago. It's a much bigger issue. But in the meantime, we have decided we're going to send the National Guard instead to Memphis, Tennessee. Now, their mayor, I believe his name is Paul Young. I should start taking notes, shouldn't I, instead of just remembering all this in my head. Their mayor, Paul Young, has stated that he welcomes the Trump administration to send in the National Guard. He welcomes it. There was a restaurant in Memphis called Mortimer's who is telling National Guard members, hey, when you get here, come in, we'll serve you for free. Come on in. So they're welcoming, they're rolling out the red carpet for the National Guard. If you've been to Memphis, then you'll understand why. Memphis, I remember going there, hanging out down on Beale Street and going to the restaurants and the jazz clubs and the Peabody Hotel. And of course, we've got Graceland there. And, it just being a really great experience to go. But now you can't do that anymore. You go down on Beale Street, you're really risking your life. People still do. I personally wouldn't. And yes, the people of Memphis, they want their town back. They want crime solved, and maybe if we go to somewhere like Memphis, bigger than DC, more crime than Washington, DC, less crime, a lot smaller than Chicago. Maybe that'll be a little bit of a testing ground. We'll kind of get an idea, a feel for what it's like in Memphis, because there are some rough characters in Memphis, I'll tell you that, and see how we solve things there. And in Washington, D.C., now we've got crime for the most part under control, but Mayor Bowser there is absolutely refusing ICE to come in. So Donald Trump is trying to figure out a workaround around that. He said that he may take over D.C. federally, completely federally, because he absolutely will have ICE come in and do their thing. So whether Bowser wants it or not going to happen. And we hasn't said anything more about Los Angeles. Tackling crime in Los Angeles is going to be harder than tackling crime in Chicago. And of course, Newsom, Mayor Bass, none of them are going to let that happen. So we've got a long way to go. And it does make you wonder, doesn't it? Why wouldn't any mayor or governor want the government to come in and solve crime? It makes absolutely no sense. Wouldn't you want your city to be safe? Don't you want less crime to occur? Don't you want criminals to be behind bars where they belong, not out hurting your citizens and creating chaos? No, apparently they don't. And this is going to be very important going forward, because this situation with Charlie Kirk, while on our end, remember, I don't know if you guys were here to see the video I played in the beginning. How do liberals react? Look what happened with George Floyd, Michael Brown. They go out and they loot stores and they burn things down, right? Instead, we baptize people. We hold vigils. We pray. There's a big difference between the two. But see, the Democrats, they don't like that. They do not like that. The liberals don't like it. And so they're going to create chaos for us We're not creating it ourselves. We haven't gone out, as far as I know, and looted or burned a darn thing. However, they want us to react. We're not reacting the way they want, so they're coming out. They're coming out against us. They're creating the chaos, and we're going to have to respond to it. Again, going back to the Washington Guard with Colonel Joe Adams, WashingtonGuard.com. If you want to learn a little bit more about situational awareness and self-defense, of course. But I think the crime is going to escalate. I think attacks against white people are going to escalate. I think attacks, because and I'm not saying blaming Black Americans for attacks against white people. It's white people attacking white people. The majority of people in Antifa and these trans power groups, they're whites. So I expect a lot of white on white crime to occur. And of course, they're pretty easy to spot. You just got to look for the purple, pink hair and the Converse shoes, right? Not too difficult to find. But these people can be very dangerous, because when you think about it, what keeps you from committing a crime, right? You're going to say, well, I'm a Christian. I don't harm people. I would never harm another person. I would never take the life of another person. I value life very much. A lot of these people do not value life at all. They don't value life. They do not believe in heaven. They don't believe in God. They don't believe there's going to be any recourse if they do harm someone. They might get caught. They don't want their freedom taken away. But some of them want to see themselves as martyrs. They're a very dangerous group of people, quite honestly, a very, very dangerous group of people. And not atheists in general. I know people who are atheists who also have strong moral value. They just don't happen to be Christians. But these people in these trans power movements and Antifa, they join these groups for a reason, because they're angry, they're mentally ill. We are their enemy, and it could turn out to be a pretty serious war. But I think Donald Trump's going to tackle that. I see him probably deeming these groups as being terrorists. So we'll see how he's talked about making Antifa terrorists before. So we'll see. But guys, that's all I've got to talk about today. I have run way over my time, as always, and I have to run off to work here shortly. My work nights tonight, so it's going to be a late night for me, and I will be here tomorrow. I will not have a show Wednesday morning. And again, I'm working to have somebody fill in for me. Hopefully, maybe we can get Colonel Joe Adams lined out, and he can fill in for me at some point when he's comfortable in doing so. And we'll have to get all that figured out. But I do absolutely appreciate you guys joining me today. I will look forward to talking to you tomorrow. There's going to be a lot of information released tomorrow, that we're probably going to have to talk about. The case continues moving forward, leaps and bounds. We'll be talking about that, and there will probably be a lot of new news too. But in tomorrow, we'll touch base again a little bit more about the Epstein files and about about Republicans, of course, refusing to allow the Epstein files to be made public. We'll talk about that tomorrow, because it's a much larger conversation than what we have time for today. But I do hope you guys have a good day. I will look forward to seeing you in the morning. And I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap.